approve or deny the reinstatement of the primary residential exemption on the parcels listed on the attached spreadsheet for tax year 2023.
That was a long one. That's almost a ream of paper.
Yeah.
331 pages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's a lot of reading.
it was.
I can make a motion to adopt that. I had no questions on those.
Okay, I will second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Approve or deny the classification change from primary residential to secondary residential on the parcels listed on the tax report for item 4. Any questions on any of those?
Nope, the homeowner was pretty straightforward and wants to make it strictly as a secondary, so I'm happy to motion to adopt number 4 as stated.
Okay, I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and our last item today is approve or deny application for review by Board of Equalization of Urban Farming Assessment Act for Viviana and Elio. Serial number 260280051. And Katrina, you're coming up to give us some rundown, okay?
Okay, so Katrina Cole with the Utah County Attorney's Office. Good afternoon. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the Assessor's Office and their position on this parcel. So as you're aware, the Assessor's Office has a statutory and a constitutional duty under Article 13, Section 2 of the Utah Constitution to ensure that everyone is assessed and taxed at a uniform and equal rate. Therefore, taxpayers applying for preferential tax treatment, such as Greenbelt or the newly enacted urban farming, must be strictly eligible to qualify for those preferential tax treatments. Otherwise, we're unfairly shifting the tax burden to the other taxpayers all across the county. So since urban farming is a newer provision, I'm going to give a brief rundown of it and review just so that we all are reminded of the requirements. So usually when someone's unable to meet the acreage requirements for Greenbelt, but they still have 1 to just under 5 acres of contiguous irrigated land, they can apply for urban farming. Of course, under Utah Code 59-217, urban farming applicants must also meet several of the requirements for Greenbelt, such as agricultural production, active devotion to that production, and with a reasonable expectation of profit. In addition, applicants are required to show that they had 2 years of active devotion to agricultural production with a reasonable expectation of profit before they submit their application.
And that's 2 years for urban farming, right?
Yes, for
Okay.
urban farming, yes. So they have to show that they meet urban farming
Okay.
requirements for 2 years. So when the county's farmland assessment analyst, Diane Garcia, reviewed the application for the urban farming status for today's taxpayer, that application was denied because portions of the legal description were not in active agricultural production and did not meet the required level of production. Specifically, so the taxpayer used the legal description for the entire parcel, and so that was the parcel that's on the application, and so that whole parcel needs to meet urban farming requirements. However, only a small portion, which is less than 1/4 of the acre, is being used for agricultural purposes. That portion, which is near the center of the parcel, is being used as a corral for some cattle and 1 horse. The rest of the parcel is not in agricultural production, and under subsection 59-1703-1A of the Utah Code, land that is not actively devoted to urban farming may not be assessed, even if the land is part of a parcel that does include land actively devoted to urban farming. So those portions of the parcel that don't include the corral don't meet the statutory requirements. But even the corral area, even if we assume that it meets all of the requirements for urban farming, which it doesn't necessarily since it's so small, it was built less than a year ago, and so it fails to meet that requirement of the 2 years of meeting the urban farming status before they apply. So because the parcel fails to meet both agricultural production levels for the statutory amount of time and just agricultural production levels in general, it is the assessor's position that this appeal should be denied today. And it may help to conceptualize this and understand this if we look at some photos. So I'm going to invite Diane Garcia to come up and explain what she saw and go over to the photos that she submitted as part of their documentation. And did we figure out somebody for that?
Just on the,
Should be in the second one. I know you've seen them, but, oh, you got 'em? Okay.
Yeah, I've got it.
Say I printed them as well, so, oh, you got them right there on your iPad, okay.
Okay, so. let's just
yeah,
scroll down to the first
next
photo.
one,
Yeah.
Les.
There you go.
Okay, yep, so that is the parcel that is being applied for urban farming, and they included the legal description of that entire parcel to get the benefit of urban farming, and the law states that it can only be a legal description of the portion that is in agricultural production, it can't include other areas. So like that building, that long roof that you see, that stores the vehicles for their landscaping, I Love My Pavers, Rocks Strong, whatever, business, and it is not in agriculture production. Go to the next one, Les. And then so you can see that there's a lot of gravel and stuff, there's no crops growing, very little, nothing planted growing for grazing pasture. And then is there a next one? Okay, and then that one shows in May, towards the middle of May, they constructed that little corral in the middle, and that was for the cattle. Towards the top right, on the very far corner of that parcel is a portion of the corral where the one horse is. So those two areas are the only areas that look like they could have agricultural production based on livestock, but they do not. In addition, they did not provide me information, anything about irrigated. It's supposed to be irrigated land in order to qualify for urban farming. It was irrigated land prior to their ownership, but I don't know, if they still irrigate or if they still have irrigation water. They didn't provide anything like that.
How many acres is the whole footprint that was applied for?
4 point something.
Okay. And
Sec-
then,
I'll
I think
tell you.
Katrina said some cattle. How many exactly? And one horse?
They keep adding, they just bought some more in May.
Okay.
Horse in there too.
So, but they have not had them there for 2 years. Yeah. I'll tell you as soon as my fingers work. Yeah, it was for the 4 point, I don't have the whole parcel number listed. Oh, here it is. 4.73.
And in the documents submitted by the taxpayer, it says that they had, in 2022, there was 2 cows.
Okay.
So it sounds like just a few.
And one horse.
One horse.
And the one horse.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and so, I mean, as these photos show, there's not a lot of agriculture production going on. It's pretty brown. There's not a lot growing on there. And the horse and the cattle are taking up such a small area that it doesn't seem to meet the requirements. Now, of course, if the taxpayer is able to get agricultural production for the entire parcel for 2 years and then reapply it, of course, at that point, we can look at it again and see if it qualifies for urban farming. But today, as the application stands, it just isn't meeting the requirements. And so we recommend that the board deny this appeal. Do you have any further questions?
None for me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Typically, if the landowner's here, we'd give a couple minutes to maybe tell
Thanks.
us your name.
Yeah, I'm Martha Wingate. I'm an attorney for Mr. Viana, who is also here. Thanks for giving us a minute to present kind of the perspective of Mr. Viana. And I think this is mostly a perception of the conversion. He bought this land in 2020. And at the time, including many of the neighbors, Harvard Farms leases the land. And it was, I believe, planted in corn, so had been in Greenbelt for all those years, right? And then, but the landowners don't make any money from Harvard Farms. They just let them kind of maintain the land for them. And when Mr. Viana acquired the land, he wanted to be able to use it in agricultural production. And actually, before he immigrated to the United States from Brazil, he was an agricultural engineer and had managed herds of cattle there. So he was interested in kind of converting from crop to livestock production on the land. So in 2021, he bought the first 2 cows. So they finished the corn season in 2020. He was in Greenbelt in 2021. He bought the first 2 cows. He raised them to see if he could sell and make a profit. He did. He was going to be able to expand the herd. But he actually really cares about his animals. And there was a lot of pooling of water on the land. And he was unhappy with kind of the state of the land for the animals. So he decided he really wanted to raise, and he does own a paving and landscaping company. He wanted to raise the level of the entire pasture. So he spent 2022, he still had the animals, and in the appeal, we show that he met the standard in terms of having animals, enough animals on the land. He had 2 cows and 1 horse for 5 months in 2021. So his AUM was 16.25 for that year, and the minimum required for this parcel would be 12.4 or something close to that, 12 point something. So he met it in 2021. In 2022, he had 2 cows and the horse for 10 months. So he was over 35, so easily meeting the 12 standard that year. But I think it's really this perception, because it makes it look, because he was repurposing this pasture and building it up, makes it look like maybe he was just like developing it or something. He brought in a ton of material, built it up, and then he put as is common practice now, he has planted pasture grass. In April of this year, was all seeded through the entire thing. And the little corral in the middle it's a portable corral. It's meant to be moved around. It started in the middle so that he can get the grass growing. And then his intention is to move around. He now has 7 cattle. He intends to sell them this winter and then increase that to 14. He has plans to add 100 goats next year. And the building, he is storing equipment that has been helping with the excavation, and he's needing to bring in alfalfa, so he has equipment to bring out the alfalfa, feed the horses in there. He also stores alfalfa in the building. Let's see, he has 54, and that was included in his statement with his appeal. He owns 54 irrigation shares, has all the pipes, and is irrigating the land, is now watering for the plants. So I know it can feel like, and I know what this commission always has to look at is someone just trying to abuse a tax code? Or, they actually want this for something else and they have no real intention, they're putting a horse on it. But he really is planning and has been using it for agricultural purposes, intending to grow it. This is his interest, his experience, and something that he wants to do. So I think it's this conversion of the land from crop to livestock production, and his decision to build it up has made the pictures look potentially concerning. Do you have other questions for us?
Can I say something?
Oh,
Yeah.
of course.
Hi, Commissioners.
Yes.
Yes, the lands that are agriculture, my neighbors, and me was before the same thing, we make no money when they let them.
Yeah, the Harvard, and he wanted to be able to
Yeah, that's why.
actually make money in agricultural production.
Yeah, and now I'm going to make money. I'm going to make. My cows was like around this 7, goes 14,000, and I'm going to make 40% profit, and that's my idea. And next year I want to put more cows there. I don't know how many I will be allowed to, but I want to grow every year, double. Okay.
I forgot one other thing. I know there's also a stack of pavers there. He is in the paving business, and so what he's been doing, he wants to build a road for access for tractors and access to the animals down the center. So when he has extras, he sticks them there, and he's already started, actually, since this picture, building kind of this road of mixed pavers of whatever's left over extra down the center of the property to get access.
The road is already there.
Yeah. Oh, it's in the photo, okay.
I did like 8,000 square feet already.
Okay.
And before the end of the year, it'll be like around 14 more thousand square feet of pavers there.
I think for me, I can see that you're on your way, but I think that the holdup I have is the 2 years that we need to show.
So the other part of the statute is that it was either in 2 years of urban farming or under the green belt. And this property has historically always been under green belt. So in the years we're contesting here, it had the 2 years of green belts ahead.
So I guess, and the way I understand it, and somebody can help me, but that was Greenbelt for another property owner, and they have to start over again? Is that, am I saying that incorrectly? Or do we
I'm not sure
count
they
that?
have to start over again. If it's in greenbelt status, that can satisfy the eligibility requirement, but you've got to make sure that there's those 2 full years prior to this application. So my understanding of the law is that if there's a change in ownership, there's a reevaluation, but it can still qualify
Yeah.
based on the greenbelt status that it was in, if it was in greenbelt.
Okay.
It's transferable then,
Well, not
Yeah.
transferable exactly, but the
as
idea
long
is
as,
that
as long as it's
yeah.
being produced.
Yeah, we don't make new landowners who are continuing to use it, land in agricultural protection, lose that for a couple of years, as long as they continue to use the intent.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Could I add something too? This picture there, that on this left part, is the tractor was, they prepared the ground there, and we plant the grass. But
Oh,
how-
yeah, maybe.
Yeah. How the
The
farmers
pasture
took-
grass.
But
Pasture.
the grass doesn't grow good, and Howard Farms went there yesterday, he's going to plant alfalfa. To me, he said
They're
alfalfa
they're gonna add alfalfa because
Alfalfa
the grass
instead of-
hasn't been doing as well as they
is going to be
wanted
the
it to.
best. And I have irrigation there. I have equipment, I can irrigation by gravity, but I put some, the stuff, the big one that goes around, you know?
Okay, thank you. Looks like Diane's got something to add.
So the difference, switching from green belt to urban farming, is that urban farming requires that the legal description being applied for is 100% the portion that's in agricultural production. Green belt, you can have a house, and we carve that out, and they get a different value. You have a driveway, you have pickleball courts, all sorts of things that people might have, but still be on green belt, because it's a part of the whole parcel. And urban farming does not have that same allowance. So it would need to be, whatever the legal description is used on the application needs to be fully 100% what's in agricultural
urban
production. And so if they just reseeded, and if they're going to do alfalfa, then that shows that that dirt area has not had that production, but yet it was included along with all the other area that, you know. So it's a little stricter in defining the actual footprint of what's in agricultural production.
So my mind, again, my statement of, we left Greenbelt, now we're talking about urban farming. I think was I correct in saying that, right? We are kind of doing a reset because it went from.
Right.
Although nobody denies that it was in Greenbelt.
Right,
But
it was
we're
previously in
resetting because
Greenbelt,
the
taken
acreage-
off. They came to Board of Equalization, they were denied Greenbelt because they did not have 5 acres in agricultural production. And so they are applying for the urban farming, which they could meet if they had 1 to 4.99 acres in agricultural production, and that's the legal description that they used on the application.
Okay. And I do see the point where, it's recently planted, so, the production there. Oh, sorry.
Mind if and if there is some section that we're arguing needs to be, one problem is, since this is all new, we asked for the application, you don't even have an application, we have to use a different form that's not specific for this. If we need to just carve off a little bit and do a different legal description, we can. Changing the land, preparing it, getting it ready, actively using it, preparing for the cattle, I feel like falls under the agricultural use. It's not like, oh, they were using it for something else or even just leaving it fallow. It has been being moved and prepared for agricultural use.
Commissioner, and I invite you both to go there anytime, because if you see what I'm doing there, you are going to approve.
Thank you. I think, I think sometimes there's a perception that we don't want you in urban farming or greenbelt, and that's absolutely not the case. I know Diane will work with you and help you and understand how much. Am I incorrect in saying that? No, right? That's your job. You do a good job at doing that. But oftentimes people say, oh, you're just trying to tell me no every time, right? And so that's what makes Diane's job so much fun, I think. But she does it well, and I think here I could see how if there was a shift to less acreage, perhaps, but even then, with the argument that it was just planted and needing to show 2 years, I guess the challenge is if we were to say we're good with this, it's likely going to be appealed to the state tax commission and denied. And I always hate wasting everybody's time and effort in doing so, but at the same time, those are my swirling thoughts.
Yeah, the statute says it has to be in a status, either greenbelt or urban farming, for at least a previous period of time. And that's what we're bound by, that's what we're frustrated by, and you're getting ready to do that.
Our argument is that the animals on it have been, we've been meeting the animal requirement, and that we have been moving them around the property. We've been feeding them. You move animals, herd animals around the property all the time. That we have been, we're not arguing, like, say, we are going to be.
Right.
We're arguing that we have been.
Yeah, and what the state requires us to do, that the entirety of the land be used, not just simply move it around, which I understand why you're doing it, that makes sense, but the state wants to see it actually used, all the square footage used with the AMU. And that's why this was hard, because when I read it, I thought, I can see where you're going. You're getting ready to have this to be prepared to be urban farming, or, well, it can't be greenbelt because it's still too little, too small. But for now, it seems like we have to go with the strict interpretation that if it's not been in production for a full 2 years, every square foot of it, with the exceptions for access and exits and that type of thing, I don't know if we can approve that. That's my concern.
So one question. If I release the cows there on the whole area, that's not, because I feed them with alfalfa. If I release, I can release, I could put the 30 cows there, release them, leave them. That's not the right stuff to do, but I can do that today.
Right.
Yeah,
Now,
and you wouldn't do that yet because your pasture's still growing, right? The alfalfa that you just planted.
But I feed them with alfalfa.
Yeah.
The alfalfa that I will plant there is for the future. But
Mhm.
if I have to use the whole, I can use the whole land. I can release the cows today and put my 23 more cows. There will be 30 cows.
Right.
I'm not using just the corral there for the cows. I can use the whole land. It will be the same thing. I'm still going to feed them with alfalfa. But my question is like that. Before, when Howard Farms plant, I make zero money. Like my neighbors, they don't make any money. And now I'm making money. And that's why I'm here. I'm paying, the attorney to come here to fight that for me, because I want to make money with that. I could let Howard Farms do what they're doing before, but zero money.
I think with what you've done this year, it really gives you a good ramp up that it feels like that by next year you're going to be able to, and at that point, making sure that the area is maybe identified, as she pointed out, we could bring down the area, but we don't want that. We don't want to be the ones doing that. We want you to apply for the area that is really, as defined, right? Many times we have people come in and say, we want the whole area, and then as commissioners, they want us just to dial it down, and that puts us in a difficult position.
And another stuff, I have no help for nobody here. Nobody never helped me. The only person that helped me here was Commissioner Thomas. On the last meeting that we have here, he said you could apply for urban farmers. I never get any help from the Utah County. I'm learning here. What I'm learning, what I need to do, and my lawyers should, we are learning here with you guys.
Okay.
But nobody never help us. You have to do this, never.
Well, when we finish, maybe we could have council work with her and connect and exchange information so we can work that out.
Yeah, we want to make sure that communication is good and that there's good understanding, so that then we're not in a meeting like this making decisions like this. For me, I'd like to see the 2 years of production that our assessor's office has asked for. I feel like if we were to just say, sure, we're good, it's just going to get appealed to the State Tax Commission and denied. Just because the legal, justification from our department is here, right? Our staff. That's just my thoughts, but I don't know if you see it.
It has to, yeah, according to statute, it has to be the full 2 prior years. That's not the preparation to, but the actual production of full 2 years. And I apologize for your frustration for a lack of communication between us and you, and maybe we can resolve that. But for now, I can't support approving that. I understand why you're rotating the cattle around, why, as you prepare the land, so you can keep it in some kind of urban status. But right now, according to state law, we can't abide by that.
Excuse me, Mr. Tom, but the preparation that I did, I raised the ground out there 4 feet. And when I was raising, I could not plant anything there. And I have proof, the stuff, the material that I bought through. And this is a part of what I'm doing. That's what I'm saying. If you go there, I think I guarantee you, because you are not going to see what you're seeing there right now.
No, I believe you. I believe you. But again, the state is requiring us to have actual production for the previous 2 years before application can be heard, not the preparation to get to production. And that's the difference in that. So,
The 2 cows that I have in the horse, that wasn't me to that.
no.
And in the case that now I'm making money, and before, the owner before, and they never pay, they pay agricultural tax. And they make no money. Now I'm making money, and I have to pay 25,000. I think that's how much the account is charging me for the. That was hard for me to. That's how much your account is charging, $25,000. And I expend around the prove it. I expended on this operation there $70-something thousand. And I have a lot of paperwork here. And I'm being penalized for that. And if I left the ground the way that it was before and make no money, I was going to be still on agriculture. That was hard for me to.
Yeah.
I think what's exciting and good is that you're on your path, right? That you did raise this 4 feet, and that was something that needed to take place for you to be able to irrigate, and the sprinkler system that you're purchasing and working to irrigate and do.
Irrigation is there. I have 5 shares.
You have your 5 shares, but you mentioned that you're getting some things in place to be more efficient with your irrigation and things, and so I can see how that as early as perhaps next year's time and application, with the defined area that you're actually working on now and getting ready might perhaps meet us if we have 2022 and then 2023, but I feel like we're just still at least 1 year shy.
So me understand, Mr. Doctor. Now I have to pay the $25,000 for the account. That's correct.
Well, maybe we can work something out over a period of time so it doesn't.
Is there any advice from staff on how that rolls out, or just an answer to that question?
What was the question again?
The 25,000. How does that? That would be due now.
Yeah, so it's,
5 years.
it's due if the rollback, if the appeal's denied, then it's due. If there's a deferral agreement arranged because of an attempt to get into like urban farm status in the future, it could be deferred through a separate agreement, but it's due upon the determination that the appeal is denied.
But it could be deferred.
It could-
It'll be due, but we could defer it until production is.
It could conceivably, that is an option that the Board of County Commissioners has, rather than the Board of Equalization has the ability to enter into deferral agreements over taxes. So it's an
1394.
option that could be explored, yes.
Okay.
Today, we just wear the Board of Equalization hats.
Right.
We don't, we don't.
That's what my
We only
tax
have that
lawyer said. They work on the same field. They said I had to pay this, like, if you deny, I had to pay this today.
That's where we're, as he just mentioned, we're under two positions right now. We're a Board of Equalization right now. We're limited to certain things, but we're also serving a different capacity as Board of Commissioners. We're able to make certain allowances and adjustments, deferrals including. Maybe we could do,
They're hoping to help you at least defer the payment maybe, but they can't do that here today.
Ah, okay.
does that make sense? And so when we finish here, maybe you could work with Katrina and exchange information, and she could help you through that process, right, Katrina?
Yeah.
Thank you. Does that make sense? Okay. Well,
Any other insider questions, Commissioner?
I have none unless council has something.
Okay. Well, I would make a motion to deny this application.
I'll second the denial.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
But after this, go ahead and work with her, and we can readdress this later.
Yeah. Okay, and then one final motion?
Motion that we adjourn unless there's some other comment that we need to hear from council on anything. Nope.
None. Okay. Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.